Hello everyone, and welcome to this workshop, 7 Keys to Omega-3s, the Omega-3 secrets you need to know. And I'd like to offer you a digital handshake and welcome. My name is Ed Pickus. I'm co-founder and editor at naturalhealthstrategies.com and greenlipmuscleoil.com, and our new site, naturalhealthed.com, which should be available to the public real soon. I wanted to just mention what we're going to be covering tonight. The main topic is the 7 keys to help you determine which omega-3 is best for you. With all the products on the market, and it's not always easy, and as you'll see as we go through this, it's not always easy to discover what is best for you. And because we've had a lot of questions, we're going to give our recommendation. At the end, I'm going to explain to you my personal experience, what I use, and why. Okay, one reason this information is really important is there are concepts that you don't usually find when you go to the pharmacy or you look online for an omega-3. We're going to be discussing this evening things such as bioavailability, what that means and why it's important for you, why it's really important that the natural raw material be free of contaminants in the first place, and the difference between when you have a contaminated resource and then you clean it and eliminate the contaminants, what the differences are, the importance of rancidity, what are fillers and why you may want to and choose to avoid them, preservatives as well, and what it really means to get your money's worth. These are very important concepts, and if you want to get the right omega-3 for you and your family, it's important to understand all of these things. So that's what we'll be covering. And tonight we're also giving away some special bonuses. Bonus number 1 is our cell phone safety recommendations, and it'll show you how you can immediately start reducing, and this is with no expense, without buying anything, how you can immediately reduce your exposure to the damaging electromagnetic radiations emitted from all cell phones, including iPhones and things like that. That will show up at the end of the workshop. There'll be a link underneath the video that will show up when we're finished, and you can download directly this special report. Bonus number 2, we're going to be giving away several natural health coaching sessions, and you'll also be able to get the details at the end of the workshop. And bonus number 3 is a PDF summary of this workshop. So if you just want to listen, you can just listen to it. At the end you'll get these slides so that you can review them and use them as a review, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. Okay? So those will all show up at the end. And here's a little disclaimer, and a very important disclaimer, that the information in this program is for educational purposes only. It does not replace the evaluation by and advice from a qualified licensed healthcare professional, and is meant as a guide towards natural health. Nothing said here should be construed as medical advice. I am a student of natural healing and of the wonders of God's creation, and recommend that you do your own research regarding any lifestyle, diet, or supplementation changes you may consider, whether now or in the future. I also urge you to find a healthcare professional that you resonate with and trust. And just as a little side note about this last thing that I just read, it's very, very important that you find a healthcare professional that you trust and really confide in, And I would say that it's probably one of the most important things you can do for your health is to find a natural healer that you can go to, because many times if you go straight to the hospital or you go straight to a specialist, you may end up going down a road that is difficult to turn off of or turn around once you've started going down that road. So it's very good to have available naturally a natural healthcare provider. Okay, let's dig right in. We have a lot of material to cover. So before we get into the 7 keys, I just want to cover some basics about omega-3s. Right now we're going to look at what are omega-3s, why do we need them, and here's a simple question, are all omega-3s the same? Okay, what are omega-3s? Omega-3s are one of 2 essential fatty acids. We have omega-3s and omega-6s. Essential fatty acids, as you can tell from the name, they're essential. And basically our bodies are not able to produce these fatty acids. That's why they're called essential. So we have to take them in our diet, or as we're going to be discussing tonight, as a dietary supplement. And they're essential not only because our bodies can't produce them, but as we'll discover, they make up the majority, almost all, of the cell membranes in our body. All of our cells, the membrane of the cells are made out of these essential fatty acids. So they're very, very important for the body to function properly. Omega-3s are one of 2 of these essential fatty acids. We have omega-3s and omega-6s. And if you look at this diagram, let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay, this is an image of more or less what phospholipid, which is another name for omega-3s, because they call it a phospholipid because up at the top, I don't know whether you can see it, the yellow ball there, it's a phosphorus molecule. It's a phosphorus atom, and that's why it's a phospholipid. And there's a chain with carbons and hydrogen atoms and oxygen. And where this bend occurs, you see the bend here, where the bend in this long chain fatty acid occurs determines whether it's an omega-3 or an omega-6. Yeah, okay. So that is basically what omega-3s are, okay? How omega-3s impact our health. Like I mentioned before, every cell membrane in the body is basically made up of a bilayer phospholipid membrane. So there are 2, let me bring this picture up a little bit bigger. Okay, this is just a diagram. It doesn't exactly look like this, but this is to give you an idea. Up at you see, this would be where the phosphorus molecule is, and here are the 2 legs that go down, and on the other side you have the phosphorus molecule and the legs going up. And it's because these molecules are actually polar. They have negative and positive charge, just like a magnet. And in the cell membrane, they stick together this way. On the outside and on the inside, where you have the phosphorus, you have a hydrophilic charge, so that it attracts water, and here it's hydrophobic. It doesn't attract. It repels water and hydrogen and things like that. Okay, anyway, that's getting pretty complicated there, but there you can see that our cells are made of these phospholipids, so they're very, very important to have, and to have the right ones. Cell membrane permeability is extremely important, and what that means is the oxygen, for example, which is one of the things that the cell needs to bring from the outside, from the blood and from the intracellular liquid that surrounds all our cells. It needs to bring the oxygen in and it needs to send the toxins, which are the result of just normal metabolism, out of the cells. So cell-brain permeability, membrane permeability, is extremely important, and omega-3s have a tremendous impact on how well the cell membranes are able to be to function. Omega-3s also help in the modulation of inflammation, and today usually we have too much inflammation. Not that a little inflammation is bad, but we have too much. It's running rampant. Many doctors consider our bodies on fire with inflammation. So omega-3s have a tremendous impact on reducing inflammation because that's part of their function. Omega-6s are pro-inflammatory modulators, and omega-3s are the reverse. They tend to modulate and reduce inflammation, and as we'll see, there are some omega-3s, because there are about 18 different ones. There is one that I know of that actually stops inflammation basically right at the beginning before it even begins. And the omega-3s also increase hormone reception. Here I just put improves moods because you actually feel better when the hormones are being received properly. But that's only one of the benefits. When hormone reception is better, glucose levels, which has to do with diabetes and things like that, and the metabolism of sugars, everything in the body basically is run by hormones. So when the cells can receive the hormones better because the cell membrane permeability is better because it has all the omega-3s that it needs, everything improves, health in general and everything. Okay. Just a few more facts about omega-3s. There are about 18 omega-3 fatty acids that are described in scientific literature. That doesn't mean that that's all there are. That just means that scientists have been able to describe and isolate 18 of them, and it's estimated that there may be 18 more omega-3s yet to be discovered. Some scientists say there's many, many more, and others say there are 18, so I just put 18 here. EPA and DHA are only 2 of 18 known omega-3s. They're the ones that have gotten most of the attention in scientific studies as well as in the media, and when you go to the store looking for an omega-3, usually the bottles will tout how much EPA and DHA they have. As we'll find out further along in this webinar, EPA and DHA are found in fish oil, and it was the fish industry that basically supported the research into these 2 omega-3s. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that those are the one. I'm not saying that to say that that's not good. All I'm saying is that that's why there's so much research into this, because the fish oil industry was able to afford to do the studies on this. There are other ones such as ETA. This is going to get technical, but I'll explain it in a minute. ETA is an isomer of arachidonic acid, which is the beginning piece in the inflammation cascade. Okay, so we don't have to understand all of this, but arachidonic acid is a molecule, and when it connects on the cell membrane, it begins what's called the inflammation cascade. At the end of this cascade, if the inflammation is in a muscle or a joint or somewhere where you have nerve endings, the end of that inflammation is pain. If it's in an artery where you don't have these nerve cells, there's no pain, but there's still all the inflammation and everything. It just doesn't end in pain. So ETA being an isomer, which is sort of like it's a mirror image of arachidonic acid. It's not arachidonic acid, it's something different, but it looks just like arachidonic acid. And when you're able to take this omega-3 ETA, it attaches to the cells in the places where the arachidonic acid would normally attach. And if the ETA is there instead of the arachidonic acid, the inflammation cascade doesn't even begin. So it's a very interesting and very, it's not very well studied because it's not found in most omega-3s, this special omega-3 called ETA. The amounts where it is found is very little, so many scientists and people weren't interested in it because it's a very small quantity is found in the natural sources of it. But it's very potent and very effective at stopping the inflammation cascade. Okay, we'll get more into that as we go. Okay, why do we need omega-3s? Well, our bodies aren't able to make omega-3 fatty acids. That's why they're called essential fatty acids, or omega-6s for that matter. We have to consume omega-3s either in the form of food or supplements or a combination of the two. Every cell in our body is covered with a double phospholipid membrane, and this membrane is almost entirely composed of omega-3s. The brain is almost entirely composed of fatty acids. Today, getting enough omega-6 isn't a problem, it's getting enough omega-3s. And why that is that omega-6s are found basically in things like corn and wheat and soy, and those items are very prevalent in the food chain today. 100 years ago or 200 years ago, cows ate grass. Today they eat corn. So even when you eat meat, you're getting more omega-6s than what would be what you would get if you ate meat from a cow that just ate grass. So it's very complicated today, and basically no one has to worry about getting omega-6s. The problem is getting enough omega-3s. Okay, are all omega-3s the same? The short answer is no, they're not. As we've seen, ETA, which is an isomer of arachidonic acid, is not the same as DHA and the other ones. Different omega-3s seem to work differently in the body, and even the combination of omega-3s appears to impact the effectiveness of the oil. Many omega-3 supplements are processed in a way that oxidizes them. This oxidation makes the omega-3s less bioavailable. When you hear about oxidation, it's basically just like rust. The oxygen molecules connect with whatever is there. In the case of omega-3s, when they get oxidized, they can convert into what's called a triglyceride. So instead of that phosphorus molecule with the 2 chains, you end up with 3 shorter chains from one molecule, and that becomes less bioavailable to the body. The body has to take that triglyceride and convert it into a long-chain fatty acid. And people who have problems with digestion or their liver or some other function in their body, if their body's not functioning in optimal conditions, they won't be able to metabolize this oxidized form of the omega-3. Monsanto has created a soybean that contains fish DNA and therefore omega-3s. For several reasons, this doesn't sound like a good idea to me, and I don't think we should even go down that road. GMO products are just not the way to go. So we're not even going to consider them or discuss this option, but I wanted you to know that that's what Monsanto and these big companies are going for. They're going to try and sell us soybeans with fish DNA in them. Okay, let's start. 7 keys to omega-3s. We're going to cover the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s, which is a very important point. We're going to cover plant and animal sources of omega-3s. They're found in plants and in animals, and we'll cover the differences. When deciding about omega-3s, you have to consider whether you're going to get your omega-3s from actual food or from a supplement. We always try to get our nutrients and food from real food and only resort to a supplement when it's really necessary. We're going to cover the importance of purity, why that's important. 5, we're going to cover the process, which includes all the things that are used in the processing and things that are added after the processing in the process of packaging. And when I refer to packaging, I'm not referring to the bottle or box that these things come in. I'm referring to whether it comes in a capsule or a gel cap or a bottle, and you have to use a spoon to take it. Number 6 is we're going to discuss bioavailability, what that means, and its relationship to potency as opposed to quantity. And this is very important if you're going to try to decide whether one omega-3 as opposed to another fits into your budget and whether you're getting your money's worth. You have to understand the difference between bioavailability and quantity, what the relationship is there. And then the last point is compliance, and that is whether you're actually going to take the supplement once you buy it. Okay, let's jump right in. Ratio. The ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s seems to be, according to the literature and the scientific study, and it makes sense, is the important factor in today's world. Omega-6s are responsible for the inflammation response. So when you twist your ankle, omega-6s bring on the inflammation. And as we know, if it inflames too much, it can hinder healing, and that's why you put ice on it to control the inflammation. Okay, it's a natural body response, and you need omega-6s and you need inflammation, but because of the imbalance in today's diet, we seem to have more pro-inflammatory responses than a modulating inflammatory response. Omega-3s are responsible for modulating inflammation. It's not this simple, but you can think of it as the gas pedal and the brake, that omega-3s stop the inflammation and omega-6s put on the gas. When the scientists studied native populations eating their native traditional diets, these would be diets that were found in traditional populations 150 years ago, they discovered that the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is between 1 to 1 or 3 to 1. And that's what many people today consider ideal. In today's reality, because all of the animals that we eat that are a good source of omega-3s are actually fed grains and corn because it's cheap, even the animals where we would normally get a good omega-6 to omega-3 ratio are way out of whack. So in today's diet, actually the ratio is anywhere from 20 all the way to 50 to 1, and that's why we're having such a tremendous problem with inflammatory diseases. Okay, let me just go back here for a minute. So the reason I want to make this very clear, this ratio, we'll come back to it and I'll explain some more about this, but the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is very important. So if you're going to take an omega-3 supplement and you really want to get the best out of it, you have to try and reduce your intake of omega-6s, which would mean eliminating or seriously reducing your intake of vegetable oils like corn oil, cottonseed oil, all the modern vegetable oils, and only use traditional oils such as coconut oil and cold pressed virgin organic olive oil and things like that. The modern vegetable oils are all very high in omega-6, so you can make a tremendous improvement in that ratio just by eliminating those omega-6 oils and foods that are high in omega-6s, and then when you take your omega-3 supplement, it has an even more powerful effect on your health. Okay, point number 2, plant or animal. Now this is a big thing there. If you're a vegetarian, a total vegetarian, or a vegan, then the animal sources may not be an option for you. and you'll have to try and get your omega-3 intake from plant sources. There is, I believe, and this is from all that I've read, that plant sources of omega-3s are very important. Flax seeds, there are juicers that have where you can make your own flaxseed oil. Very, very good. We're going to get one as soon as we can. Pumpkin seeds, leafy green vegetables. So if you're juicing a lot, you're getting your good amount of omega-3s from your leafy greens. Hemp seeds are very good. The only difficulty with plant sources is that your body has to actually work at it to turn it into the long-chain fatty acid that it needs for the cell membranes and all of the things that it needs omega-3s for. So if for some reason you're fighting some sort of disease and you're not doing well health-wise, and you have a chronic inflammatory condition, diabetes, arthritis, or any of the modern day degenerative diseases, even if you take very high quality plant sources, you may not be able to use it or assimilate it as easily as an animal source. And this is why, for those of you who are vegan or vegetarian, you may want to consider an animal source of omega-3s just to get the benefits, or just until your body improves enough in its ability to convert ALA and other things found in plant sources to omega-3s that your body can use. But that's a decision that you'll have to make. My wife and I are not vegan. We still eat some, very little, but we still eat some animal sources, and the omega-3 that we personally use is an animal source. It's a marine omega-3. I can see here that I have a problem. This marine algae actually should be up under the plant source and not animal source. Under animal sources you have fish and marine animals, real eggs. I say real eggs because regular store-bought eggs where the chickens are fed corn and other grains are not necessarily a good source of omega-3s, and grass-fed beef the same, because if the animals are being fed corn, then the meat you're eating is going to be high in omega-6s. Also, you have to be really careful for marketing. If the eggs say high in omega-3 or omega-3 eggs, that may not be your best bet. What that may mean is that they're feeding fish parts to the chickens, which chickens normally don't eat fish. They eat bugs and grass. So it's always better to go the natural route and eat eggs that come from chickens that run around in the sun, get plenty of vitamin D, and eat bugs and stuff, and the same for the cows. Okay, so that's a decision you'll have to make, whether you're going to want to get your omega-3 from a plant source or an animal source. We personally have decided to get our omega-3s from both. Okay, another consideration is you'll need to decide whether you're going to get your omega-3s from food or a supplement. One of the ideas that's very helpful when making this kind of decision is to understand a matrix as opposed to individual components. Modern nutritionism and marketing, which go hand in hand, seem to tend to take individual components and market them. Whereas in nature, we usually tend to see matrices, minerals. Like, for instance, if you're going to use a natural salt, it has a whole matrix of minerals in the salt. It doesn't have just one component or two components. It's a whole matrix. And the same with calcium and iron. When you find it in nature, it comes in a whole matrix. So if you decide when you get food, you get the whole matrix. When you get a supplement, depending on how the supplement is made and configured, you may get individual components, and then you'll have to see whether they're really effective or not. That's more or less the same when you discuss whole foods versus isolates. Isolate is they isolate some component of food, like they take vitamin C out of a food, or they take vitamin E out of a food. And from my experience, isolates don't work as well as the whole foods. That's why I'm a big proponent of juicing, because you can get a lot of these components found in the natural whole food matrix, and it seems to be a lot better. On this same point, it's kind of like when you're thinking about, well, what should we do? What's best for my family, for my kids? Think about grandma, and in the case of some, you might have to go all the way back to great-grandma if you knew her or knew something about her, versus reductionist nutritionalism. Like today, the nutritionists, who everybody, even in the health world, seems to be listening to, they tend to reduce everything down to its lowest terms and talk about the vitamins and this new thing and that new thing. Instead of grandmas, it would just say, eat your peas, they're good for you. Make sure you're drinking enough water. Are you sleeping well? How's your bowel movements doing? Things that grandma used to be concerned about. You may end up being able to make decisions better thinking about, well, what would grandma do? Okay, I'm just throwing that out. That's not necessary for you to follow that, but that's just the idea, okay? Now, there is a problem with eating the whole foods, and that's getting enough quantity, and that's why I like juicing. In the morning, I take a whole bowl of vegetables and juice it, and in about 8 ounces, I can get what would probably be a normal person's whole day or 2 days of vegetable intake. And I try to juice all throughout the day. So that's one way to get the quantity. The problem with supplements and isolates is that they're missing the synergy. The synergy is how things together seem to work differently than when they're separate. So that's something to consider, and it's good to try things. Many people, when they take, for example, fish oil, have told me, I take fish oil. And I say, how do you like it? I don't really like it, but my doctor says it's good for me, so I take it. And I say, do you notice anything? Do you feel better? And they say, no, but I take it because I know it's good for my heart. And the reason they know it's good for their heart is because of some scientific study and some nutritionalists or some doctors who say that it's good. But I asked them, I said, do you feel better? Have you noticed anything? No. So I always think, and it's not always possible to actually notice some difference, but I think it's a good thing to look out for. So it's good to try things, and if you don't notice anything getting better, maybe you should try something else. Okay? Let's move on here. Excuse me. Oh, okay, there are some questions coming up. We'll try and answer questions at the end if there's time, okay? And if not, go ahead and send your questions in, and I'll try to answer you personally by email. Okay, point number 4, purity versus purification. For example, today's world is a very contaminated world. One advantage of vegetable sources of omega-3s is that at least today, it's easier to get organic, natural, uncontaminated sources of vegetable omega-3s than it is animal omega-3s, and I'll explain why. One of the best sources, the animal sources of omega-3s, are fish or marine animals. The problem is the oceans are highly contaminated. So one of the things you have to consider, the larger the fish, the longer it's lived, the more other fish it's eaten, and the more contaminated it is. And one of the reasons it's more contaminated is fish do not have a natural physiological way of eliminating mercury and dioxins and other contaminants. So the fish actually help clean the ocean up, and the older a fish is and the bigger it is and the higher up the food chain it is, the more contaminated it is. Then the problem comes, okay, so we're getting this fish oil, which is made from all these big and diverse types of fish that have traveled all over the oceans. Now, since we know that they're contaminated, many fish sources don't mention the levels of mercury, and that's why I personally don't take fish oil. It's because of that problem with mercury, because I'm particularly sensitive to it, and I have to be very careful with mercury contamination. But the process, so many fish oils actually remove the contaminants, which is a very good thing. However, this process to remove mercury and dioxins and other contaminations denature the oil. So you're getting a pure oil, and they call it pharmaceutical grade, DHA and EPA, etc., etc. I won't get into all the processes, but there's esterification and all kinds of things. There are some new processes which are very good that don't denature the oil as much. But these processes to purify it actually denature and either oxidize or change the actual formation of the oils, which are very sensitive to heat and pressure and things like that. So the process usually involves heat, pressure, and solvents and salt, and/or there are different processes that involve different things, and all of those denature the oil. So one thing for you to consider, this is just my recommendation, is that you start with a pure source, and then that way you don't have to go through the process of purification. Of course, if you can't get it, then my feeling is that purification is better than consuming more mercury and dioxins and other contaminants. Okay? So let's move on. Point number 5, the process and the packaging. Part of the process is covered in the last one, the last section. If you have to purify it, that's part of the process, and that denatures it. Now, there are other factors involved when creating a supplement. One of those things is that many natural substances and unnatural substances, when you're trying to stick this powder or liquid or oil in a capsule, the oil or the powder or whatever tends to stick to the machine, so they add all kinds of other things in as fillers and processing lubricants to help in the processing. These aren't added to help you as a consumer. They're designed to increase profit margin and to be able to give a better price, and it helps, for example, a machine or an assembly line in one day to go faster and therefore produce more. These fillers and processing lubricants aren't always so good for your health. They're not added for that reason. You have to also look and see if there's soy, glycerin. I didn't want to name a whole bunch of them. There's magnesium stearate. There's all kinds of different things that are added that you have to really think about, in the sense that if you're going to take a supplement every day for the rest of your life, do you want to be taking something that was added as a lubricant every day that goes into your body and your body doesn't recognize it as a food, and then has to figure out, well, that your body says, what do we do with this? And they go, oh, okay, well, we're not going to digest it, so let's stick it somewhere, and they stick it in, well, in the fat somewhere. But that's not even really fat, it's something else. Or your body says, okay, let's get rid of it, and it has to go through the liver and through the kidneys, and can cause problems. And this is on a daily basis. So when considering what omega-3 to get, it's one of the things to consider. Look very clearly not only at the ingredients, but at all the ingredients. Okay, number 6, bioavailability and potency versus quantity. This is a very good one. I love this point. This is really, really cool. Some things are just very potent, and what makes them potent is the fact that you can take it and your body just sucks it up. It absorbs it, and it goes right into the cells and it has an effect. That's bioavailability. If you have a large quantity of something, but it's not bioavailable, it won't be potent. So there's a real, in the marketing, when companies decide to market their product, they always tout that. Many times modern marketing, I've studied marketing, and it's horrible what they do. They can take, I've seen some companies take the process of esterification, which totally denatures the oil, and tout it as one of the benefits. And what it does, this esterification process purifies the oil and also makes higher quantities of DHA and EPA, which are the two oils that have been studied. So although these esterified oils contain more DHA and EPA than their the competition, they're denatured. So although it has quantity, it doesn't have bioavailability and therefore won't have potency. So many times you may find a product that is smaller in quantity, higher in price, but much better in quality and bioavailability and potency, and therefore is actually a better bargain than buying quantity at a cheaper price. Okay, so those are all things that you'll need to consider when deciding which omega-3 is best for you and your family. Okay, compliance. I had point number 7 as sustainability, which is an important point and should be considered when you're buying any kind of thing, but this point of compliance I felt was even more important. Compliance has to do with, for example, you go to the doctor with a bad back and he says, okay, I want you to do these stretches twice a day, and I want you to sleep without a pillow, or whatever recommendations he does, and go to this therapy twice a week for the next 3 weeks, and then come back and see me. Compliance is the guy gets up in the morning, takes a shower, rushes off to work, and doesn't do what he's asked, and then he goes back in 3 weeks and he says, doctor, my back still hurts. Okay, so doctors face this. One of my partners, and who's a doctor, he's a orthopedic surgeon as a matter of fact, and he has a lot of sports injuries. He says compliance is one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems he has to face. It's not that he doesn't know what to do with his patient, but the patient has to participate in the recovery, and so compliance is an important factor. Now I just listed a couple things here that affect omega-3, especially in omega-3 compliance. One is capsule size. If you're going to get an omega-3 supplement, most omega-3s come in 1 gram gelatin gelatin capsules. They're huge. Another problem is the smell. I don't know how many of you have ever opened your bottle of omega-3 and just about felt like throwing up first thing in the morning. And then there's a question of digestibility, which actually has to do with rancidity. When an oil is rancid, it becomes very difficult for your body to digest. It doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't recognize it as food because it's already oxidized. So when deciding which omega-3, take a look at size as well. If you're going to be giving an omega-3 to your child to help with mental function and concentration and all the reasons why a mother may want to give their child a supplement, omega-3 supplement, you have to look at the size of the capsule. If it comes in a liquid, you have to look at the smell and how digestible it is. Everybody knows this, but most people seem to ignore it. If you eat something and it causes your body's not able to digest it and it sits in your stomach, after a while you'll turn your nose up at it every time you see it. And children do the same thing. So to try and get a child or your animal or yourself to take something that doesn't digest well is going to be very difficult, and you have to consider that this is something that you'll probably want to do for the rest of your life, taking this supplement every day. Okay, so that's the point of compliance. Okay, here's one final thought. Listen to your body. One of the greatest lessons I'm learning in my natural health journey is the fundamental importance of listening to my body. Burps, bad breath, nausea, sluggishness, just to name a few, are things you should pay attention to. I couldn't stand to open my bottle of fish oil. I only bought one bottle and I never finished it. I felt that these reactions to the fish oil were signs that my body was rejecting this supplement and that it just wasn't for me. Now, I do have to say, I bought, in the country I'm living in, what was one of the best fish oil supplements on the market. That doesn't mean that it was the best that you can find in the world, but it was the best I could find at the moment. And it didn't agree with me, so I never really finished it. I've had people tell me that they just don't like, when I talk to them about health and mention omega-3s, they say, yeah, but I hate feeling like I just kissed a sardine. They don't want to have this feeling that they smell like a fish, or they don't like the burps, or they don't like just the smell of opening the bottle, or they don't like how they feel after they take the supplement. All of those things are signs that something's not right. So you have to listen to your body. You may be able to find another fish oil that doesn't give you those things. You just have to consider if they've been denatured in the process of trying to get rid of the smell, for example. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, so because of basically a demand by many people, they've asked me this. I'm going to tell you my personal story and how I decided on the omega-3 that I use. Whenever I tell others about the importance of omega-3 and the strategies we discovered in our search for the best supplements we could find, I always hear the same thing. This all sounds great. I've taken fish oil caps and I just hate the burps. I hate feeling like I just kissed a fish. I dislike the idea that I smell like a sardine. I also just don't eat that many vegetables. So what do you use? What's your experience? And that's the reason why I've decided to share with you not only my experience but also what I personally use, and that's what we're going to cover now. Okay, oops. Let me see what I can do. Sorry, folks. I can't really do anything with this. Okay, so I was offered a fabulous sounding omega-3 oil to try. It was also a health business offer. It was a business offer. So I decided to try it to see if it were something I'd like personally, and then if I really liked it, I'd consider offering it to my readers and my site visitors. I figured that if it were half of what I was told, then I'd love to use this omega-3, and selling a few bottles on the side would mean that my own bottles would cost me almost nothing. Okay, that's a very common thing in the internet, in the world of business today. I didn't want to offer it until I had tried it. And so I waited quite a few months to actually try this omega-3. Sorry about that last slide. There was something with the formatting there. Okay, and what happened after we received our first shipment of this omega-3 was nothing short of fantastic. I recorded my progress and I published it on our site at the time, and I'll recap it here for you. I took a basic health inventory right before I started taking the Omega-3. I wanted to have something written to refer to so I wouldn't just be creating good results due to positive thinking. So I sat down and I wrote down all the different things that were bothering me at the time. I'm not going to cover all of them here, but you can go to my site and read it. It's under something called My Story, and you can see the different health issues that I was facing. The following is a small part of my story. I'm going to relate my experience only in regards to my heart and my ability to run and do strenuous exercise like running up and down hills, running in the sand, and swimming in the ocean. Okay, in 2000 I was suffering from fatigue and generally just feeling run down. I had overexerted one day and had chest pains, headache, plus exhaustion. A friend a few months later talked me into doing a heart sonogram. He's a doctor, a good friend, and actually he was he was the guy that actually caused me to, not caused me, but he was the excuse why I overexerted and actually injured my heart. The sonogram showed a prolapsed mitral valve, and I was told I'd eventually need to do a valve replacement surgery to correct it. I looked at the doctor and I looked at my friend and I said, "What? I'm not gonna." I just don't like the idea of somebody taking a knife and cutting me in pieces. That doesn't really appeal to me. I suffered chest pains and a general feeling of having a 5 kilo, that's about 10-pound weight on my chest at the slightest exertion. On day 28 of taking this Omega-3, I went to the beach. Now that was in 2000, and when I started taking the Omega-3 was in 2008, at the end of 2008. So all the rest of that time, I guess I'm in pretty good health because I was able to function very well, but I know I wasn't really functioning optimally. I'd get tired as the day drew on, even though I'm basically a pretty strong guy, so I would just push ahead. I wasn't always in a very good mood because I had to really exert myself. So anyway, on day 28 of taking this Omega-3, I'd been taking it, for almost 4 weeks. I went to the beach. I usually would go to the beach every Sunday morning and walk and spend a little time in the beach. I went to the beach and I just felt so good I started running. I was only going to do a short 100 meters, but I felt so good I jogged all the way to the end of our beach, which is a full 1.5 kilometers, nearly a full mile. And if any of you like to run in the sand, our sand isn't like in California or other beaches where it's hard packed. It's loose sand, so it's quite an exertion to actually run in the sand. Here are several very interesting things about my experience. I wasn't panting or out of breath. I actually felt very good. I got to the end and I felt really good. I didn't have any chest pains and I didn't even feel tired. I felt good. I felt tired. I knew I had exerted, but I didn't feel exhausted. This is something about the next day. The next day I didn't have any sore muscles, which is another indication that something different was happening. Because if any of you who exercise irregularly, like once a week, know that if you really exert just on, I have a lot of friends who play football on Sunday, and Monday, and Tuesday they're sore. I wasn't sore the next day. I felt so good I did 45 minutes of yoga and swam a bit and ran back to the beginning of our beach before going home. When I got home and I told my wife what I did, we love each other, and she was just very concerned about me, but I assured her that I felt good, but she was a little bit upset at me for doing that. Okay, this was in January. Okay, I started in 2008, at the end of 2008, and this happened in January 2009, after taking this product for only 28 days. Since then, I have never felt pains in my chest, and I do not suffer from fatigue. I get tired, but it's a good kind of tiredness. I know I've worked hard, and I feel good and tired. Not like before, where I'd feel sick and tired. Okay. Here I just want to, so you're probably wondering, okay, well, what omega-3 is this that you're taking, and here we're going to get into it. I just wanted to review some of the points and show you how my decision and our choice of an omega-3 has to do with these 7 keys that I shared with you at the beginning of the webinar of this workshop. One has to do with the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So over the period of maybe 4 years before we started taking this omega-3 that I'm going to tell you about in the next slide, we seriously reduced our intake of omega-6 oils. So although I wasn't taking an omega-3 supplement, I believe the ratio, our particular ratios of omega-6 to omega-3s improved, and we noticed health benefits just from that improvement. This bettering of the ratio from omega-6 to omega-3 also, I believe, had a tremendous impact on the benefits that I received from taking this omega-3. So a person who eats in McDonald's and drinks 2, 3, 4 liters of Coke every day could take this same omega-3 and probably not get the same benefits. And there are actually good solid reasons why that would happen, and I wanted you to keep this in mind. What happened to me is not necessarily what will happen to everybody just because they take this omega-3. Okay, there are actual reasons why perhaps some people have better reactions or more noticeable reactions or faster reactions, and other people slow. Sometimes this may have to do with, for example, one of the things would be the omega-6 omega-3 ratio that they currently have with their diet, and it may just have to do with their metabolism. Everybody's different, so not everybody has the same reaction. I'm just explaining to you mine and my reasons, okay, if this is a help for you. Okay, number 2, the plant and animal source. We had increased our intake of plant omega-3s, but not animal sources. And when we added this animal source of omega-3s, I believe that the reaction was really high because we weren't getting an animal source of omega-3s in our diet. At that time, we hadn't found a source of real eggs, and so we really we weren't eating fish because I'd done detoxification for mercury, and fish wasn't an option for us. So the animal source was really kind of like the missing key for me, at least, and my wife. Okay, food versus a supplement. This particular supplement that I'm going to share with you actually is the closest thing to a food supplement that I can think of. Oops, just a second here. Okay. We always try to eat real food, and we shy away from supplementation and only take supplements when it's really, really necessary. And this supplement is basically the whole oil. It's processed cold. It doesn't suffer pressure or esterification. There's no salts used in its processing, and there are no solvents used in its processing. And it's the whole oil. It's sort of like taking olive oil. Olive oil is like a whole food. Although it's not the whole food, it's like a whole food. And that's what taking this supplement is. It's like a whole food. You get the whole matrix. It's not just one omega-3. And actually, this source actually contains all 18 known omega-3s, which is a very interesting situation. Okay, the next one was purity. This particular oil, those of you who know my site, Greenlit Muscle Oil, can imagine, this oil comes from mussels, which I've never eaten. I come from a Jewish family, and we didn't eat shellfish and things like that. So I've just personally never eaten them. I don't have anything against them. It's just they don't seem very appetizing to me. But they come from mussels that are grown sustainably. They're not fed anything. They're grown on ropes in pristine waters that are tested daily by an independent third party responsible to the government of New Zealand. The animals only live 12 to 18 months at most, and they only eat the very beginning of the food chain, which are plankton. They filter the water and they digest the plankton, which is at the very top of the food chain. So plankton actually are like what lettuce is or grass is to the mammals, and it's very high in omega-3s, and that's where all the fish get it, is from eating other fish who eat plankton. So these are like right at the top of the food chain, and the waters that pass up to where these mussels are grown comes straight from Antarctic, which is very, very pure. The shipping lanes are mandatorily mandated 200 miles away by the New Zealand government. So this product is actually pure before it even gets processed. I can explain more about this, but remember we were talking about purity, that it's better to have a pure source than it is to get a contaminated source and purify it. So that met this criteria for us. Processing and packaging. This particular supplement that we take contains no fillers, no preservatives, and no additives. It only has 3 ingredients. It has the omega-3 oil from greenlip mussels. It has grapeseed extract, which was added as an antioxidant, and I can explain more probably in another thing, but real briefly, omega-3s tend to oxidize very quickly. That's why I don't recommend people going to their health food store and buying a bottle of flaxseed oil, unless it's the kind of oil that is kept refrigerated or is made fresh and you have to use it within 2 weeks. Even then, you're at risk of the oil being oxidized. But oxidation is a problem for all omega-3s. And adding the grapeseed extract as an antioxidant proved to help potentize, not only keep the omega-3 from oxidizing, but it actually adds, when you eat it, you're getting the antioxidant of the grapeseed extract, which there are many, many studies out today about how powerful grapeseed oil and grapeseed extract are. So it's an added plus to the supplement. And it's like a whole food. It's not an isolate. It's the whole grapeseed extract. Actually, the extract that we use in this product is from the husk of the seed. Okay? And the other ingredient is kiwi fruit seed extract, which is a natural vitamin E. So this was added also to just round out the supplementation with these 3 very powerful natural, it's not a whole food, but it's almost a whole food. Everything is processed with a minimum of heat. They're actually considered by those in the raw food community as raw. So it's like eating raw foods. The only other ingredient is beef gelatin, which is used in the capsules. And these actually provide other nutrients as well. So if you're a 100% vegetarian and you're not interested in trying something that's not vegan, then this particular recommendation isn't really for you. Although I do recommend that you consider trying it and see what it does for your health. Okay? But that's a decision that you have to decide. Okay, number 6, bioavailability and potency versus quantity. Due to its bioavailability, these omega-3s that come from the greenlip mussel are highly polarized. They're polar lipids. They come in a polar form, which means the head has a different charge than at the end of the tail, and they're very easily assimilated into the body. From my experience, from what I can tell and from what I've read, because of the incorrect ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, which is typical in today's diet all around the world, when you do take a good high-quality polar omega-3, like I'm going to share with you in just a minute, your body just absorbs it. It can pass through the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain. It gets into the cells. It's just very easily absorbed, so it's highly bioavailable and therefore is more potent. So it's not a matter of quantity in this case, because, as I'll tell you in just a minute, the capsules are very small. Okay, regarding point number 7, which was compliance, the capsules are small. They're itty-bitty, which makes it very easy to be compliant. I've seen children swallow them with no problem. They go down and you don't even feel them, which is really, really nice. When you open the container, it smells like the ocean, not like a dead fish. And that's very important to me in any case. I like the ocean. I love the smell of the beach, and it smells like the ocean. I've never met anybody yet who's had burps from taking this, although I'm sure it's possible. I just haven't had any. I've been working with this particular brand for 4 years, and I've never had a complaint of that yet. Okay, one other thing is sustainability, just for you to know. The product does not take a food source for another species. For example, krill oil, krill are the source of food for whales. So if you're harvesting krill, you're using the food source for whales. Although just in defense and to be fair for krill oil, which is another good possibility, a good source of omega-3 oils, it seems that there's plenty of krill in the ocean for everybody. Okay, but this particular source, these mussels which eat the plankton, don't deplete the plankton source at all. If you see, I've seen from space satellite photos of the region where they're grown, and at different times of years they have these huge blooms of plankton that you can see from space, and the farms are so minuscule and the mussels are so small, and each mussel eats so few plankton. It's absolutely, there's no problem with sustainability. One other factor that I just want to mention is traceability. Because they're sustainable, the New Zealand government has a program that the source of mussels, the source for the grapes, and the source of the kiwis are all sustainably grown and traceable. So that means when you get a bottle of this product, there'll be a number on it, a lot number, and it's possible for the company to tell which line the mussels came from. They can see the whole history of the water analysis, which is done daily by a third-party independent source, testing the waters for contamination and all kinds of other factors. They can see the whole history, when it went to the factory, when it was processed, and all the details of all the ingredients. Okay, so that's 4 ingredients in this product, including the wrapper, the what do you call it, the capsule. Okay, and the beef, the cows that are used to produce this gelatin are all sustainably grown with no pesticides. They're grass-fed. They roam the hills of these absolutely wild mountains in the South Island of New Zealand. Amazing, amazing place. If you've ever seen the movie Lord of the Rings, I believe that was filmed down there. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so want to know what it is I use? Okay, here it is. Moxer. Sorry, this is the wrong slide, but in any case, the name of the product is Moxer. Funny name, I know. I never did figure out how it got its name. I'll have to ask John Turner one of these days, next time I am online with him, how the name came about. But it's called Moxer. It comes in a very small bottle with very small capsules. Each bottle is enough for 2 capsules a day for 30 days, which is a normal dose. When I started taking Moxer, I did what's called front loading, and that is the first day the first day I actually just took 1 capsule just to see if I would have a reaction. I didn't, so the next day I took 2, and then I went to 4, and I went to 4 for the first week, and I really liked what I was feeling. I don't remember whether I stayed on 4 for the next few days, but then I went down to 3, and then I was down at 2, and I usually take 2 a day. If I have some sort of pain or ache, I do have back problems occasionally, although not very often, but if I do have some particular pain, I can take more Moxer, and I have never had to resort to pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory. Okay, Moxer, I just want to mention to you guys, it's getting late. I'm not going to have time to answer questions, I don't think. I'll get back to you by email. Thank you all for participating. Down below, you should be able to see the 2 links, one for the PDF copy of these slides and the other for our report on cell phone radiation and cell phone safety that you can put into practice today to help lower your exposure. Also, for the first 3 people who purchase Moxer today, I'm going to give a free consultation. It's not a medical consultation, it just has to do with our product Moxer, to answer any product questions and to see what might be a good plan for you. These consultations are normally $97 for a half hour. They'll be free for the first 3 people who buy Moxer now. You'll see details at the end at the end of this webinar. It comes with a 90-day guarantee. So what that means is that you can try this all-natural product for 3 full months and see for yourself how it works. You get to test drive it, and for whatever reason, if it doesn't meet your expectations, you get your money back, less the shipping costs. Okay, so it has a 100% guarantee. How many of you get to try the pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories or other drugs you buy at the pharmacy? If you bring back the empty container, how many get your money back? I don't think there's a one that happens to. So I would just recommend try it. Today, inflammation is a huge problem, and getting your omega-3s can help resolve or modulate many of the effects and even causes of the inflammation. So we've come to the end of the webinar, and I don't think we're going to have time tonight to answer questions. Those of you who did send in questions, I'll answer you by email, and some of the questions I may end up doing videos on in the future to answer more fully. Okay, they were all really appreciated. Thank you. I appreciate all of you who came out to the webinar, and especially those who are new. All of you that I know, we'll see you soon. So remember, you can just click the button right down below this video and you'll be taken to a page which explains the 2 basic options we have for buying Moxer. Okay, it's pretty well set out there. You can buy as a retail customer or a preferred customer with up to a 23% discount. And remember, we've taken the risk out of this purchase for you. You can try it. All the risk is on us. You try it for 3 months, and if it doesn't meet your expectations, you get your money back with just by calling in a simple little phone call or email, and you get your money returned minus the shipping. And so the whole experiment, the 3-month trial, is on us. Okay? And also remember, the first 3 that buy right now get a free Omega-3 coaching call with me, which is usually a $97 affair, and we can discuss in person and go over a personal plan for you and how to set up your program for taking and getting the most out of this wonderful Omega-3 oil. Okay, thank you all, and see you on the next video.